Hi everybody, this is Jerry Baker. In this video we're going to talk about buzzbaits. Buzzbaits are one of my favorite lures to fish with, if not my favorite overall lure to fish with. I've caught a lot of fish with buzzbaits, and my biggest fish to date, I'd say my top 5 or 6 biggest fish, have all been caught on a buzzbait. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go over some reasons why I like fishing with buzzbaits. I'll even give you a couple negative aspects about buzzbaits, but what I'll do is I'll give you some tips and tricks to kind of counteract those negative aspects. We'll go over some of the equipment that I like to fish with when I go fishing with a buzzbait. I'll give you some advice and suggestions on how to fish buzzbaits, and then towards the end of the video, I'll give you my top 3 buzzbaits that I like going fishing with. These are the 3 buzzbaits that I always carry with me when I go fishing. Alright, so one of the main reasons I really like fishing with the buzzbait is because it covers a lot of water, and it covers a lot of water rather quickly, which makes it a really good search bait. So if you're fishing from a boat or kayak, you don't have a fish finder or sonar, or if you're fishing from the bank or shore, you don't have one of those really cool fish finders, portable fish finders like the Deeper or the iBobber, buzzbait is a really good search bait to try to locate those fish. And that's one of the main reasons why a buzzbait is one of my first go-to lures when I go out fishing. Alright, and the second reason I like fishing a buzzbait is it just catches big fish. As I mentioned before, my biggest fish to date, my 5, 6 biggest fish I've caught have all been caught on buzzbaits. Now, I generally fish a 3/8 ounce buzzbait, and of course it also depends on what body of water you're fishing to. That's going to also determine the size of the fish you catch, but generally I love a buzzbait because they just catch big fish. Another reason I like fishing a buzzbait is because they're 99.9% weedless. And the reason that is because of the way the body's set up and the way the hook's always going to be facing up. And even if you put a trailer hook on your buzzbait, which I highly recommend, that trailer hook's going to be facing up also most of the time. So when you're skimming over any vegetation or any laydowns or anything like that that's just below the surface, you're going to go right over it free and clear. And even some sparse vegetation that's on top of the water, a lot of times you're going to get through that vegetation without grabbing a hold of it. Now, I'm not saying you can throw a buzzbait in the middle of a big lily pad or a hydrilla mat or any kind of matted vegetation. That's mainly going to be when you need a frog or something like that. But when you're fishing on the outside edges of those matted vegetations, a lot of times that buzzbait's just going to go right around it and not get hung up on any vegetation. Unlike, say, like a spook, for example, a topwater spook that's got a couple treble hooks, those treble hooks are more than likely going to grab a hold of any vegetation that's floating on top of the surface, and then even sometimes grab a hold of any vegetation just below the surface. So once again, another reason I love a buzzbait is because it's mainly weedless. Now, one of the negative aspects of a buzzbait is the hookup ratio can be a little bit lower than some of your other baits and lures out there. Well, one way to counteract that and improve your hookup ratio is by adding a trailer hook to your buzzbait. I've caught several fish just because I had the trailer hook on there. There's been times where the fish has hammered that buzzbait but didn't grab onto the main hook, whereas the trailer hook had swung around, and I've caught fish on the outside of the lip, outside underneath the chin, and a couple times, and I can't really explain how it happened, I've even caught a couple fish where the trailer hook has hooked the top of the head of the fish. So without having a trailer hook on the buzzbait, I would not have been able to catch those fish. Another negative aspect about the buzzbait is the fact that it is such a bulky presentation. You may not get quite the casting distance that you will with other particular lures and baits, especially when it's really windy outside. Casting into the wind is really going to cut down on your casting distance, and if you're using a bait casting reel, you got to be really careful, because if you give it a really hard cast trying to get extra casting distance, that wind's really going to slow down that buzzbait in the air. Meanwhile, the spool on your bait casting reel is still turning, and that can cause you a backlash. One way to counteract that is to slim down the profile of your buzzbait, and to do that, you just take the skirt off and then you just put on a soft plastic, say like a swim bait, for example, and that's going to give you a slimmer profile and allow you to cast a little better into the wind. Now, in terms of equipment I like to use when I'm fishing a buzzbait, I personally prefer a 6.5 foot to 7 foot, 7'2" medium to medium heavy power rod with a fast action tip. One of the main reasons I like using a medium to medium heavy power rod is because, as I mentioned before, I'm usually catching pretty good sized fish with a buzzbait. So I want that extra strength and backbone to pull those fish in. Plus, I really love fishing a buzzbait around matted vegetation and weed lines and other different structures and so forth. And so sometimes if the fish grab a hold of that buzzbait and they dive down into the weeds, I want to have that backbone and that rod to be able to yank them out of the weeds and bring them in. Now, in terms of line, I really like to use 30-pound braid. Now, you can use fluorocarbon and monofilament if you like, and I've used those two before, But for me personally, I get better casting distance with 30-pound braid. Now, in terms of 65-pound braid, I've tried that too, but I don't get quite the casting distance I do when I'm fishing with 30-pound braid. All right, one of the best tips I can give you with the buzzbait is when you cast that buzzbait out, right before it hits the water, engage your reel and start reeling that buzzbait back to you. Now that's going to do two things for you. One, it's going to keep that buzzbait on top of the water surface. As I mentioned before earlier, a buzzbait is a really weedless presentation. However, because of the open hook, the big hook, and if you got a trailer hook, now you've got two open hooks. If that buzzbait sinks down below the surface of the water, it's going to have a bigger opportunity to get snagged up on weeds and grass and other obstacles down underneath the surface of the water. So by doing engaging your reel and reeling it back to you before it hits the surface of the water, it's going to help keep that buzzbait on top of the water. And two, what that's also going to do, it's going to give you a quieter presentation. You're not going to get a big splash when you just throw it out and let it hit the water. By engaging your reel and reeling it in right before it hits the water, it's going to land quieter, and it's going to give you a better opportunity to catch fish, because if there's any fish around, it's not going to spook them quite as much. Now, in terms of retrieval speed, I like to let the fish dictate how fast I should retrieve that buzzbait back in. Now, I do have a couple rules of thumb. If I see windy conditions and the water's really choppy, I tend to go with the faster retrieval speed. I'll bring that buzzbait back in. I'll retrieve it in, say, like a medium to medium fast, retrieval speed. Whereas if it's a really calm day outside and the water's really flat, I'll tend to go with a slower presentation and reel that in slowly, just fast enough to keep that buzzbait on top of the water. However, some days the fish like to flip the script and say on a calm day, if that slow presentation isn't working, I'll speed it up a little bit. And sometimes that'll start causing some strikes in that buzzbait. So definitely let the fish tell you how fast to fish those buzzbaits. Now, one thing I have issue with when I'm fishing with a buzzbait is trying to wait 1 to 2 seconds before setting the hook. A lot of times I get excited, that fish hits that buzzbait, and I just yank back and set the hook. And next thing I know, that buzzbait's flying by my head. So the key when fishing a buzzbait is try to wait that 1 to 2 seconds before setting the hook. That's going to greatly increase your hookup ratio, and you're going to catch more fish with a buzzbait. Now, one thing I'll really highly recommend, especially if you carry more than one rod and reel combo with you, is to make sure when you're buzzbait fishing, have another rod and reel rigged up with a soft plastic of your choice. Anything that you're comfortable or confident in fishing with. It could be a Cinco worm, weighted or unweighted. It could be a Texas rigged creature bait like a Zoom brush hog or a rage tail or a gambler ugly otter or something like that. The reason I say that is many times you may be fishing with that buzzbait and the fish are striking that buzzbait but not grabbing a hold of the hook. So once that happens 1 or 2 times, put down that buzzbait and pick up that rod and reel with that soft plastic, throw that soft plastic out and cast it out right where that fish is striking and hitting your buzzbait. A lot of times, I'd say at least half the time on that first cast with that soft plastic, you're going to catch a fish. And the reason why, that fish, he's hungry or he's pissed off or something. He's hitting that buzzbait, and once you throw out that soft plastic and it starts to slowly fall vertically right in front of him, he's going to grab that soft plastic. You're going to catch that fish. Now, you didn't catch the fish on a buzzbait, but the buzzbait found the fish, and you were able to catch that fish on your soft plastics. Now, here are my 3 favorite buzzbaits that I fish with. Whether I'm fishing from a kayak or a boat, or if I'm fishing on shore, if I'm bringing a lot of tackle, if I'm bringing just a little bit of tackle, I've always got these 3 buzzbaits on me at all times. All right, so here are my 3 favorite buzzbaits. These are the ones I fish with and always carry with me, whether I'm fishing from a boat or kayak or fishing from the shore. I've always got these 3 buzzbaits with me. Now, just because they work best for me in my fishing area does not mean they're going to be the best for your area, but I definitely recommend you trying these out in your area and see how well they work for you. First up at the bottom here, we got a Strike King Banshee Series buzzbait. I believe these are only sold at Dick's Sporting Goods because that's the only place I can find them. The one in the middle here, the next one is a War Eagle Black buzzbait. And then at the top here, we've got a Chartreuse Yellow Cavitron Buzzbait. All 3 of these buzzbaits are 3/8 ounce. We'll go ahead and start with the Strike King Banshee Series buzzbait. This is the buzzbait I've probably caught the most fish on. It does really well in where conditions where you've got a pretty good amount of light, clear water to slightly stained water. You can still catch fish, and I have caught fish in opposite conditions. I've caught it in murky water. I've caught it in low light conditions in the late evening and early morning times. But it does best when you got a pretty good amount of light outside and your water's relatively clear to somewhat stained. It does come with a trailer hook already attached out the package. And the one thing I like about this buzzbait, it's got a pretty good squeal to it. See if I can get the sound of the blade here. And that squeal that the blade makes as it's coming through the water, I think is one of the things that really helps make this this lure pretty successful. That little squeal maybe attracts the fish a little better than some of the more quieter buzzbaits out there. As you can see, it's got a white body with a little silver yellow side to it, a gray top, skirt's white with some gray and yellow in it, and then of course the blade is also painted to match the body and the skirt. And this is their sexy shad color. I believe it's sexy shad. It's some kind of shad color that they call it. Next up is the War Eagle Black Buzzbait. This one doesn't come with a trailer hook, but I do attach one. It doesn't have one on there now, but I do attach one when I use it to go fishing. This one does better in low light conditions and low visibility conditions in terms of your water clarity. It does great in murky, muddy water. I've still caught fish with it in opposite conditions, just like the Strike King Banshee buzzbait. It'll catch fish in just about any condition, but it does best when the water's murky and say it's like early dawn or late evening when the sun's going down or coming up and you got low light conditions. So when those conditions are present, this is the buzzbait that I reach for first. Next up, we've got this Cavitron Buzzbait. It's their yellow chartreuse. It's got a white-yellow chartreuse skirt, white-yellow chartreuse body with a little red dot. It's got a gold blade with some holes in it, and it's got a red hook to it. The one cool thing is about this one, and the reason I really like this one is I can fish this buzzbait really, really slow compared to the Strike King Banshee buzzbait and the War Eagle buzzbait. If I try to fish those other two as slow as I can fish this one, those other two will sink. Whereas I can fish this one pretty slow and it'll stay on the surface of the water. The other thing about this blade here has got some holes in it. And as that's spinning through the water, it creates a little more bubbles than these other two blades down here that are solid. As you can see, like this Strike King Banshee blade there, it's a solid blade. So whenever I want to do a slower presentation, or maybe the other two aren't quite working, I'll reach for this Cavitron and see how well this one works out. And this does really well in lighter, just like the Banshee buzzbait. It does really well in nice lighted conditions, water clarity when it's a little clear, or if it's slightly stained, it does pretty well. But once again, you know, it'll still catch fish in opposite conditions. I have caught this in low light conditions and in really muddy water. So, but it does best in light conditions and clearer water. So, anyways, these are my 3 go-to favorite buzzbaits. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please just drop those in the comments section. If you guys have a buzzbait out there that you really like that's not one of these 3 here that are my personal favorites, feel free to let me know. I'm always looking to try new lures. Who knows, your favorite might be my new favorite. It might supplant one of these 3. So please, if you have a buzzbait out there that you really like, please put that down in the comments section. Once again, this is Jeremy Baker. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more gear review videos, more unboxing videos, and more fishing videos, please subscribe to my channel. Once again, this is Jeremy Baker, and we'll talk to you guys soon.